And we are back. Welcome, guys. My name is DK, and in this video, we're going to break down the 8-game NFL main slate on Saturday. We have 13 games total overall throughout the day. It's going to be a wild one for both props and DFS. I'm probably not going to be sleeping at all on Saturday. Going to have some alarms set to try to time the prize pick / underdog board. Last week, it got released at 4 a.m. Luckily, I was up for the Olympics, but Saturday is going to be a grind. This is your first time watching, guys. Cover content for NFL, NBA, daily fantasy sports, as well as for player prop stuff. Underdog, they are the sponsor of today's video. If you guys are not on Underdog, you can use the link down below or the code DKDFS for a $250 deposit match bonus. Would highly recommend it. They do offer preseason props. Been doing some WNBA as well, and we've been having just a ton of success on the preseason. And if you guys look for more content, as always, you can check my Patreon linked in the description. As far as recap goes from yesterday, so just insane again for props. We've been absolutely dominating WNBA very well. And then NFL preseason, more W's as well. Took the under on Jennings and Lou Nichols. Took the under on Hasty and John Ross, so they're an underdog. I took the under on Shipley rushing yards, which hit. Unfortunately, the one pick that I missed was Drake May over passing yards. Got a little bit unlucky. I think it was Baker dropped a long pass from him. We got news that he's going to play 2 quarters. So I took the over. I think it was like 72 passing yards. But that was the one miss that I had. And then as far as DFS goes, I only played one lineup in the big tournament. That was it. I played pretty contrarian. It did not cash, but I did enter a lot of second half contests and easily made my money back there. All right, guys, we got a lot of talk about. I'm going to go fast. So let's first start off with Buffalo and Pittsburgh. Okay, so for Buffalo, Josh Allen did play last week. Now, my expectation is if he plays, he's going to get similar run, maybe a little bit more. If not, you got Mitch Trubisky and the newly signed Ben DiNucci. They did release Shane Buechele, so he is no longer with the team. But I'm going to go over some snap counts really quick. So Buffalo, at running back, Ray Davis played the most. He played 26 of the 68 snaps, ran 17 routes. Looking at the wide receiver position, there's a few guys that got 20-plus snaps. Isabella, MVS, Schaefer's, and KJ Hamler all got 20-plus snaps there at the wide receiver position. And then tight end was relatively spread out. Nothing really to mention there. We'll keep an eye on the Buffalo news. But if Allen's out, I think Trubisky would look really good because I would assume he would probably play at least a half, maybe more. And obviously he is somewhat mobile. At the running back position, we mentioned that it was Davis that played the most, right? He played 26 snaps. We'll keep an eye on the news. I don't expect a ton of Cook. Also, Ty Johnson missed last game. We'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, it could be a lot of Davis, Evans, and then Gore. Looking at the snaps, again, it was 26 snaps to Davis, 14 to Evans, and then 16 to Gore. At the wide receiver position, again, it'll be a lot of the middle of the depth chart guys that got a lot of run, right? It was like MBS, Hamler, Isabella, Schaefer. So those would probably be the targets there. At the tight end position, it was relatively spread out. Davidson, I believe, ran the most routes. He ran 15 routes. Quentin Morris ran 16 routes. So those guys ran the most there. I'm talking about Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh really tilted me, man. I played Plumlee that last slate. I was looking great. I cashed with a 0 from Plumlee in tournaments pretty easily. Had Plumlee played, I would have had a good chance of winning high stakes. That was a little bit annoying. Now you get confirmation Russell Wilson, the starters, are expected to play roughly 4 series. So that makes it kind of tricky to get to anyone. I would assume, you're going to get Fields and Allen then in behind Russell Wilson. So not a ton to like there at the quarterback position. For running backs, I still have a lot of guys that was really spread out. I mean, I guess if I had to play running back in this team, it probably would be like Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren with that news that starters are expected to play roughly 4 series. At the wide receiver position, again, they're still relatively deep. I think that, Pickens and Van Jefferson are fine. If you take a look at the snap counts last week for wide receiver, let's see, Calvin Austin played 23 of the 59 snaps, ran 13 routes. But again, it was relatively spread out there. I do think the starters are at least playable. Running backs is really spread out. No one played more than 14 snaps at the running back position. Again, if I had to play someone, it probably would be a starter. And then tight ends, it was also very spread out. So not a ton to like here from Pittsburgh. Let's move on to Washington and Miami. So Washington, what we have to talk about here is there's no Mariota, no Hartman. Now, they did just sign Trace McSorley. He's been around for a while, former Penn State quarterback. And we saw Washington here. Let me bring up the snap counts. I got my another screen over here. So we haven't had confirmation on on Washington, but we'll keep a close eye on that. But yeah, looking at the quarterback play last week, again, you saw a couple drives for Daniels. He played 11 drives. Could see him playing a little bit more. The running back position was relatively spread out. It was Michael Wiley that played the most. He played 28 snaps. And then the wide receiver position, surprisingly, Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson played the most. He played 32 snaps. Hold on, give me 1 sec. Sorry. Okay. So, yeah, Dotson surprisingly played a lot, but yeah, Washington's pretty deep at wide receiver. And then they kind of spread it out at tight end as well. So, yeah, running back, again, Wiley, he played the most there at the back end. Wide receivers relatively spread out, but Dotson got a good amount of run there. Now, for Miami, we've got news that starters, or most starters, are expected to play. Guys who are starters will suit up for action. I don't think we're going to see a ton of the Miami starters. My guess is, maybe a series or two. And then you got Mike White, Skylar Thompson behind Tua. If I'm going to play a Miami quarterback, I think it would be Skylar Thompson because he is mobile. At the running back position, so Miami did only play 3 running backs last week. So let me go ahead and bring the snap counts up on my other screen. Again, trying to go pretty quick here, guys, since we have a lot of games to talk about. But yeah, so 3 running backs played. It was Wilson, Brooks, and Wright. Brooks played the most, 29 snaps, 13 routes. So yeah, starters, like I said, expected to probably play a series or 2 here for Miami. So don't really think I'm going to get to like Mostert or Achane. I do think, Jalen Wright is interesting. Also, Salvon Ahmed was inactive last week. We'll keep an eye on the news there. At the wide receiver position, so Miami is dealing with some injuries at the wide receiver position. Again, Hill, Waddle probably play a little bit. Looking at the snap counts for wide receiver, let's see. So Willie Snead played a lot. He played 39 snaps, 22 routes. Kyrick McGowan played 40 snaps, ran 21 routes. You saw 26 snaps and 15 routes for Sanders. So it was a lot of the back-end guys that got a lot of work there for Miami. Uzakama was also out last game. We'll keep an eye on that. Washington, it was decent, but he didn't play as much as some of those back-end guys. At the tight end position for Miami, so you saw 38 snaps for Rucci, 17 routes. He'd probably be the target there. Okay, Arizona and Indy. So we already know, again, that Kyler Murray will not be playing at all in the preseason. So let me go ahead and bring up their snap counts from last week. Yeah, no Kyler Murray. You have Desmond Ridder and you have Clayton Tune. And then for the Colts, we got news. Again, the starters will not play. So we'll cover that in a sec. Okay. Yeah, so last week, again, it was Ridder and it was Tune. Look at the snap counts there at quarterback. Tune played 42 snaps. Ridder played 29. At the running back position, so you did see relatively spread out there for Arizona. 4 running backs did play: Benson, Carter, DJ Dallas, and Tony Jones. But again, it was relatively spread out. You did not see James Conner last week. At the wide receiver position, so they play a lot of guys. Pascal played 31 snaps. Palmer played 33 snaps. Xavier Weaver played 38 snaps. So again, a little bit more of the back end guys got a lot of work. At the tight end position, Whiteheart had a decent game. I want to say he had like 3 catches or something. He played 31 snaps and 19 routes. So I think he's a decent tight end play there. All right, talking about the Colts. So again, we got no Richardson and no Joe Flacco. Looking at the snaps last week for the Colts. So you did see Bean play a little bit too. So you technically will have 3 quarterbacks play. My guess is Sam Ehlinger will get the start. If I'm going to play one of these quarterbacks, it would be Ehlinger because he is mobile. At the running back position, so you saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys play. It was pretty spread out. Not much here. Again, Sermon Digg a little bit banged up. Keep an eye on that. They also did sign Demetric Felton. At the wide receiver position, so the Colts are dealing with a little bit of some injuries here. So we'll keep an eye on that. That could be relatively shorthanded, depending on who exactly gets ruled in, before lock. But looking at wide receiver, I mean, you saw 20 snaps for Gould, 12 routes, 20 snaps for Treadwell at the end of the depth chart, 11 routes. 20 snaps for DJ Montgomery, 11 routes. But again, it was relatively spread out, and kind of the same thing there with the tight end position. All right, so for Seattle, we already know that Geno Smith and starters are not expected to play. I think Sam Howell is probably one of the better quarterback plays on the slate. So he played, I want to say it was 70% of the snaps. He played over half the game, and he is mobile. So yeah, sign me up for some Sam Howell. Like I said, I think he's one of the better quarterback plays of the slate. Taking a look at the running back position. So we're not expecting much of the main guys. You saw 24 snaps for the rookie Helani, 12 routes, and then 21 snaps for McIntosh, 11 routes, 22 snaps, 6 routes for Kobe Lewis. I think once again, it would be the young guys, McIntosh and Helani, that I would look to there for Seattle. So the wide receiver position, you did see JSN play, which is a little bit surprising. He played 22 routes, but it was the guys kind of the middle of the depth chart that got a lot of work. So 50 snaps for Dark Young, 29 routes, 41 snaps for Jake Bobo, 22 routes. I think those two, both Young and Bobo, are really solid options based on the snap counts that they saw last week, and then relatively spread out from there. At the tight end position, 28 snaps for Russell. He ran 12 routes, but they play five tight ends. We're talking about Tennessee, so we already know that Will Levis and a group of the starters will not play. And they already said that Malik Willis is going to start. Now, how much will Malik Willis play? I'm not sure. But then you have Mason Rudolph behind him. Now, Willis, I think, has the upside to play, into the second half. And if that is the case, then I think he's one of the better quarterback plays of the slate, just because we know Malik Willis is very, very mobile. So, yeah, Willis also looks really good here. Now, the running back position. So let me bring up the snaps here for Tennessee. Okay. Where are the Tennessee Titans? There are. Okay. So looking at the running back position, last week you saw relatively spread out. The guys that played the most were Chestnut and Jabari Small. Chestnut, 20 of the 71 snaps, 12 routes. Jabari Small, 25 snaps, 11 routes. So again, it was kind of the back end guys that got a lot of work there for Tennessee. Looking at the wide receiver position, now Tennessee is relatively banged up as well at wide receiver. So, again, they could be pretty shorthanded. We're not expecting to see much of the starters. So let's kind of rule off the top 3 guys. And then, again, a few guys have been banged up. Phillips a little bit banged up. Harrison banged up. Dowell banged up. So this could be a situation where, they are pretty shorthanded here. But it will just depend on exactly who gets ruled in, who gets ruled out. Looking at the snaps, again, from last week. Kinsey played 28 snaps, 15 routes. Let's see, what else? 27 snaps and 12 routes for Sam Sheeny, whatever that is. Kyle Phillips, 23 snaps, 16 routes. At the tight end position, one thing I wanted to mention, David Martin Robinson, 38 snaps and 21 routes. So that's a lot of routes for tight end. So I think he's a little bit interesting there as a sneaky tight end play. Okay, let's move on to the Jets. So for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, starters not expected to play. Tyrod Taylor did play a little bit last week, but I could even see him not playing at all this week. I think he got one drive, I want to say 1 or 2 drives for Tyrod Taylor. Let me look it up. It was, 7 snaps. So not a ton of work there. Hold on, let me bring up the Carolina depth chart or the Carolina snap counts as well. Looking at the quarterback position here for the Jets, again, Rodgers not expected to play. Tyrod Taylor, doubt he plays much. So you did have Adrian Martinez play a good amount last week for the Jets. He played about half the game, and then Peasley came in right after Tyrod Taylor. It could be a split here with Peasley and Martinez. And if that's the case, I think both would be solid quarterback plays. I still would give the edge to Martinez because he is a little bit more mobile. Looking at running back for the Jets last week, so they played, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. It was pretty spread out. No one played more than 15 snaps, so not a ton to mention there. At the wide receiver position, however, there were a couple guys that played a lot. So Lance McCutcheon, former Rams preseason legend, played 41 of the 55 snaps, ran 21 routes. That's a lot of work for the preseason. Brandon Smith, 26 snaps, 11 routes. But yeah, McCutcheon was kind of the standout there. At tight end, it was pretty spread out. 4 guys played. Yeboah barely played. He only ran 7 snaps and 4 routes. Okay, I'm talking through Carolina. Okay, so Andy Dalton's going to be out for a bit. You did see Jake Plummer play majority of the game. He didn't do much with it. We'll see about Bryce Young. Still no confirmation yet. My guess if he plays is not going to be for a lot of work, but we'll see. If he's out, I think Plummer would be once again playable, but he was not great at all. Last week, Carolina was pretty short-handed at the running back position, so they only played 3 guys. It was Boone, Johnson, and Sheridan. Boone played the most, 30 snaps, 19 routes. Johnson and Sheridan only 12 snaps each. Again, Blackshear was inactive. You didn't see Brooks. You didn't see a lot of opportunities here, or a lot of backs play. So if that's the case, once again, I think Mike Boone could be a really interesting running back play at the wide receiver position for Carolina. So you saw 27 snaps, about half the game for David Moore, about half the game surprisingly for Terrence Marshall as well. He put a little bit more than I thought. 23 snaps for Coker. 18 routes, 30 snaps. Smith Marsette played the most, 30 snaps and 21 routes. And looking at tight end for Carolina, so relatively spread out, but just Tavion Sanders played the most, 24 snaps and 14 routes. I think he's an interesting tight end play. Now for the Rams, so the Rams are always like one of my favorite teams to target in the preseason. We know how they play it. They never play any of their main guys. And they don't play a lot of guys. They don't rotate a lot of guys. So we didn't see Stafford. Obviously, we didn't see Jimmy G. Stenson Bennett played the entire game. And I was projecting him for like three plus quarters, and he played the entire game. Now with Bennett, again, not the best quarterback. He's not very mobile, but if he's going to get the entire game again, I think he's one of the top quarterback plays at the slate. And then running back, so this tilts me because I had a really good lineup with Ronnie Rivers. Rivers was active but did not play. You didn't see Kyron Williams. You didn't see Blake Corum. Doubt they play. And then you didn't see Ronnie Rivers just available, I think, as a body just in case something happened. You only saw 2 running backs play for the Rams. It was Dusty Boston Scott. They just grounded and pounded him for absolutely no reason. Which again made very little sense. But yeah, 41 snaps for Boston Scott, 18 routes, 30 snaps for Zach Evans, 11 routes. If in fact the Rams have a similar plan and we don't see Ronnie Rivers again, then Boston Scott and Zach Evans are 2 of the best running back plays at the slate. And then the wide receiver position, we're not going to see any of the top 4 guys, and they only had 6 wide receivers play. So looking at the snaps, you saw 54 snaps for Xavier Smith, 33 routes. Whittington, 46 snaps, 25 routes. He was the most productive receiver. Tyler Johnson only played 26 snaps, 14 routes. 26 snaps and 17 routes for Stoops. 38 snaps and 24 routes for Wogoltz, however you pronounce his name. And then 23 snaps, 16 routes for Lap. But it'll be Whittington and it'll be Xavier Smith that I would expect them to get a good amount of work. Now, the only concern here with Whittington is he played really well, and we kind of saw that with Puka last year. Puka played really well in the first preseason game and then did not play the rest of the way. So is Whittington maybe too good to play in this game? I don't know. That's the only concern I have. If you're worried about that, obviously just go to Smith. You can go to Stoops. Johnson maybe plays a little bit more. Wogoltz played a decent amount as well. I'm looking at the tight end positions. So you did see 4 tight ends play. Davis Allen, 23 snaps, 13 routes, 24 snaps, and 19 routes for Miller Forrestall. So Forrestall, I think, could be a sneaky tight end play there. Now for the Chargers, once again, Justin Herbert out. You're going to Easton Stick starting. Let me pull up the snap counts last week for the Chargers. Easton Stick was pretty disappointing. I played the Seahawks D. That worked out in a big way because the Chargers offense was bad. No doubt about it. They were really, really bad. So looking at the quarterback play, Easton Stick played 25 snaps, 12 snaps for Luis Perez, 16 snaps for Max Dugan. Not much there at the quarterback position. Now running backs, we didn't see Edwards. We didn't see Dobbins. Vidal was a surprising scratch as well. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but you only saw 3 running backs play for the Chargers. It was Spiller, it was Patterson, it was Dotson. They were relatively spread out. Dotson played the most, 20 snaps. We'll keep an eye on the news there of Vidal. If he's out and there's only 3 running backs that played, then those 3 running backs look pretty solid. At the wide receiver position, so you saw Brandon Rice play 43 snaps, ran 27 routes. So that's a good amount of work, again, of the 43 of the 53 snaps. So you played almost the entire game. Definitely something to note there. Semi Fioco also played 33 snaps, 17 routes. Outside of that, it was relatively spread out. It was Fioco and it was Rice that played a lot here. Kind of the guys in the middle of the depth chart. So I think those guys are interesting options. At the tight end position for the Chargers, Nothing really to note. They played, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. Yeah, pretty disgusting there. All right, last couple games, guys. We got Tampa Bay and we got Jacksonville. We already know that Baker Mayfield and starters not expected to play in this game. So you're going to get Trask, you're going to get Wolford. Both are fine options. No real strong takes on either of them. Let me bring up the snap counts here for Tampa Bay. So yeah, basically split there with Wolford and with Trask. But they're fine. But I think there's other quarterbacks that have a bit of a higher ceiling. Now, the running back positions, you saw 1, 2, 3, 4 guys play. Sean Tucker played the most, 27 snaps, 13 routes. Bucky Irvin was productive in his touches, but only 17 snaps, 10 routes. I think it would be Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker if I'm going to look to anyone at the running back position here for Tampa Bay. Looking at the wide receivers, so they were a little bit banged up. Again, not expecting to see Evans or Godwin. Shepard didn't play last game. Looking at the snap counts, there were a few guys that got a good amount of runs. So Cody Thompson played 45 snaps. And ran 24 routes. What else here? 31 snaps and 20 routes for Jarrett, 34 snaps and 17 routes for Raleigh Webb, and 43 snaps and 24 routes for Miller. So again, middle to end of the depth chart guys that got the most work there for Tampa Bay. And then looking at tight end, Devin Culp, whatever that is, 23 snaps, 16 routes. You saw 5 tight ends play, but he ran the most amount of routes. So yeah, if I'm going to target a tight end, probably would be Culp. All right, so for Jacksonville, we know that Trevor Lawrence is not scheduled to play. So I would have guessed that kind of groups in the starters as well. So that leaves Mac Jones and CJ Beathard. Both should play. My guess is half the game each. So it makes them playable. But again, we have other quarterbacks. I think you can expect, guys to play into the second half. But yeah, those guys are still fine. Now, Jacksonville is pretty deep. But again, my guess is with Trevor Lawrence not playing, that you're probably not going to see much of the starters, but it was really spread out last week. Got a lot of unders for props for Jags players, and it worked out in a big way. You saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs play. You saw Dearness Johnson played the most, 18 snaps. Again, ETN played 9 snaps. Bigsby played 7 snaps. If ETN doesn't play, I do think Dearness Johnson or Bigsby could be viable options. At wide receiver, though, it's still pretty deep. Even if we're not expecting like the main guys to play, they have so many options. Who played the most at wide receiver? Like, it was really spread. Elijah Cooks played 18 of the 58 snaps. I think he played the most of anyone. Yeah, that was the most of anyone. He played 18 of the 58 snaps. Again, even if the main guys don't play, still not a ton to love. I guess I'm going to target someone who would be someone in the middle of the depth chart, like a Cooks or Tim Jones, but pretty gross. And tight end also very gross as well. Now, finally, for Dallas, so we're not expecting Prescott and the starters to play here for Dallas. So I do think we're going to see a lot of Trey Lance once again. I think he's one of the best quarterback plays at the slate. So you saw Cooper Rush come in. Cooper Rush started the game. I believe he only played 1 series. Yeah, he played 6 snaps. Trey Lance played 65 to 71 snaps. We'll keep an eye on the news, but I'm expecting a lot of work once again for Trey Lance. In my opinion, he's one of the best, if not the best quarterback play on the slate. Now, the running back position. So last week for Dallas, you saw 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs play. Dowdle got the start and only played 6 snaps. Malik Davis played the most, 31 and 71 snaps on 20 routes, 19 snaps for Connor, 15 snaps for Pete. Freeman was banged up. Deuce Vaughn also did not play last game. He returned to practice, so if he's available, that's one more body in the room. At the wide receiver position, like I said, I think we're going to get similar work. Not expecting any of the starters to play. Wide receiver snaps were pretty spread out. Cam Johnson played the most. He played 32 snaps, 21 routes, 29 snaps and 23 routes for Burnett. But yeah, relatively spread out. Again, there's a lot of the back end guys that got a lot of work there for Dallas at the tight end position. So I played Stevens on that Sunday slate. It worked out, even though he didn't play a ton. He played 17 snaps, 14 routes. I think I'm going to play a tight end on Dallas, even though he played a lot of guys, it would be him. And then finally for the Raiders. So the Raiders, they have a lot of guys. The news is that Minshew will start. And then you're going to see O'Connell come in after that. So let me bring up these snap counts here for the Raiders. And they also said that I think after this week, they're going to name a starting quarterback. But yeah, Raiders, I mean, they played a ton of guys, right? So you saw 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks play. There's not much here to like a quarterback. At the running back position here for the Raiders. So you saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs play, 6, or actually 7 running backs play. Sorry. No one played more than 14 snaps, so not great there. At the wide receiver position, so Wilkerson played 24 of the 66 snaps, ran 16 routes. 26 snaps and 10 routes for Keaton, 33 snaps, 21 routes for Trey Tucker. So it was, again, Tucker and Wilkerson that played the most there for the Raiders, and not much there to like at tight end for Las Vegas. All right, guys, so that's the wrap of the video. I know it was a lot of talking, a lot of stats. Obviously, things can change. I'll be keeping everyone updated over on Patreon, posting every single piece of news possible, doing live stream before lock, very in-depth roster construction video as well. So, yeah, that'll all be up on Patreon if you guys are interested. Also, a ton of props as well. Whenever they release the board, I'll be ready. So thanks again for watching, guys. If you do enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next video.